Hello everyone, once again my name is Marisol Pineda, continuing my midterm project for WST 460 Women and the Body course with video number 2. In this video I will be discussing the concept of how the body is socially and culturally constructed and how these constructs create gendered bodies. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. Throughout this video, I will be referencing Chapter 8, The Socially Constructed Body, Insights from Feminist Theory by Judith Loeber and Patricia Yancey Martin. I briefly discussed gender in my first video, and I once again want to point out that gender is socially constructed. Loeber and Martin emphasize that members of a society construct their bodies to fit the accepted views of what being masculine and feminine are all about, meaning that we try and shape our bodies and use our bodies in ways that conform to our culture's views of women's bodies as well as a man's body and what they should look like and behave like. The social construction feminist theory argues that the ideal types of bodies that are encouraged to emulate are the product of society's gender ideology and practices. We have certain expectations of what being a man and what being a woman are all about. To be considered a man, you have to be strong, muscular, authoritative, and outspoken. Being tall is also, ideal. When you're tall, it's almost as if saying or showing, your strength and your power. You have to be lean and toned, and strong jawlines are also preferred. In Western societies, there is an expectation that men need to be protectors of men and women. Loeber and Martin provided an example of a 20-year-old bodybuilder. When he was 12 years old, his father walked out on him, his mother, and his brother. And from that point forward, he felt that he now had to be the man of the house. So he started working out so that he could fill that role of what being a man of the house is, the role that his father had left behind. He says that now he has a child and he feels that in order to be there for her, he has to be strong, to be a man. In this situation, we see how men transform their bodies to conform to our culture's expectations of a man's body and what it should look like. For women, usually the expectation is that they need to have curves, whether that be, having a big breast. Being too muscular is typically frowned upon when it comes to women because it's seen as a masculine quality. There are bodybuilders that are women, and in order to try and maintain their a feminine quality to them, they try and have long hair, blonde hair, and even the way they perform on stage, it's their movements are almost dance movements, and all of this is to reinforce that they still have that feminine quality. Yes, they're bodybuilders, which is usually something that you see in men, but they still can hold those feminine qualities. The women are also really expected to please men, and as a result, their bodies are often transformed in a way that will attract men. There is also this view that women are emotional beings, so it's often accepted whenever a woman cries. That's fine. It's the view is that they're women. Women can cry, but if that were the same for men, they're usually judged for doing so. As children, we learn how to behave in these gender norms, and for those children that don't conform to these gender norms, they're often reprimanded. For example, Karen Martin, author of Becoming a Gendered Body, Practices of Preschools, writes that clothing parents send their kids to school in shape children's experiences of their bodies in gendered ways. Most little girls are sent to school in dresses, as little girls were often told by our mothers or even our teachers to not jump around, to sit a certain way, especially when wearing a dress, because it's unladylike if we behave in, if we're jumping around or not sitting with our legs crossed. With this in mind, we're already teaching and enforcing the idea that women and girls need to be a bit more docile. Dresses restrict girls' movements. In Martin's study of preschoolers, she noticed that boys often spoke without raising their hand, which is usually a classroom rule. Make sure you raise your hand before speaking. But often this behavior was not discouraged whenever little boys did this. So it almost reinforced the idea that men should be outspoken. It's okay. It's fine for you to do that. But when girls did the same thing, speaking without raising their hand, they were reprimanded. And this again is a way to teach children that certain things boys do is acceptable, but if girls do those same actions, that's not acceptable. So it teaches kids that there is a difference between being a boy and being a girl, and that you need to behave in the ways that are appropriate for boys and appropriate for girls. Anything outside of this nice little bubble of what being a man and being a woman is all about, as well as what being masculine and feminine typically look like, are not for the most part accepted by society. Transgender people, gays, lesbians, and even gender neutral people are often ostracized because they don't fit in these nice little bubbles created by society. The view may not necessarily be voiced, but if we take a look around us, we see how those that don't fit the traditional views of gender are often excluded from society. For example, public bathrooms are labeled men or women. We rarely find gender-neutral bathrooms. Whenever we fill out any sort of documents, we typically only see two options, male or female. For the longest time, gay marriage was not legal. All of these little examples reinforce the idea that people that do not clearly fit into the traditional gender forms have no place in society. And it's a sad way to live and be. Our gendered society can't really adapt to gender neutrality because gender is used so much to determine how people should be treated. Yes, we have made some progress to start including individuals that are seen as different into our society, but there are still so many that are excluded. Lober and Martin write that one of the most crucial aspects of social construction of gendered bodies is that women and men should be easy to tell apart. But let's be realistic, this just doesn't work. Men and women often experiment with clothing that is usually expected to be worn by the opposite gender. I see numerous women wearing basketball shorts, more men now wear pink shirts. So many people are redefining what gender is, but as a whole, we're not yet accepting of these new definitions of gender. I would like to think that as a society, we are capable of changing the social construction of gendered bodies, but this is much easier said than done. Our identities are so strongly tied to how we perform gender norms. Society uses gender to define us, and we ourselves are sometimes guilty of defining who we are and what we should look like based on these views of what gender is. I myself have been guilty of preventing myself from buying a cool t-shirt just because it's found in the men's section at a store. I often see parents discourage their kids from playing with toys that are considered to be for the opposite sex. I've seen little boys get in trouble for playing with Barbies. And as children, this is where we really start to learn how to behave in the appropriate gender. So yes, it is difficult to move past these stereotypical views of gender and try to live gender neutral lives, but it's certainly not impossible to do so. This wraps up video number 2 for our midterm project. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and watch.